Hello there, how are you? I am here with Alice today and we are going to talk about cultivating a life of writing. So this video is for everyone who wants to write, who wants to be a writer, want to write more, and if you like me, want to cultivate a life of writing. So this is a goal that I set in the beginning of the year because writing is a very core part of my identity. It's something that I enjoy very much. I've always wanted to write ever since I was a kid, and yeah, it's very, very important to me. And in the last year I didn't do as much writing as I have done before because I was running my own creative business for the first time, so writing couldn't be as much of a priority. And so this year I really want to bring that back and to make writing a priority in my life again. And so in this video I want to talk about 6 things I'm doing to cultivate a life of writing for me, and that you can do as well if you want to be a writer, if you want to write more, and if you want to live life as a writer. So let's dive in. So the first thing I'm doing is the most important and essential and core part of it all, and the most obvious thing. I am making time for writing, and it is very fundamental and simple and obvious, but it's also so important, because a writer is someone who writes. So without the writing there is not much of a writing life. So that is the thing that the biggest thing about cultivating a life of writing for me, and that goal that I've set for this year. So I've started out, my big project is my book draft that I'm gonna work on. And so I started out this year by having book days 1 day a week, where my main focus for the day would be to work on the book. And now, after that have been working really well, but after a couple of weeks I have now gotten more into the project, so I have found myself enjoying working in smaller increments, like an hour here and an hour there. So I might not stick with the book days necessarily, but I am sticking with the fact that I need to make it a priority and to make time for it in my schedule, and that's the most important part. So if you are struggling to make time for writing, what I would suggest is to do something similar as I've done with my book days, that you give yourself a structure, a time structure. It can be like, okay, you try to have writing mornings an hour before work, or you take your lunch break for some work, or you have a day in the weekend that you work for 3 hours. The structure really doesn't matter that much, just that you have some kind of structure, because it's so much easier to build a habit that is at the beginning quite unflexible, because that will make it easier to follow through and to stick to that habit. And then when it's more natural and it's more when it's more normal for you to write, then you can start being more flexible and adjusting that and seeing, because it will be easier for you to stick with something once it has become natural. That's what I'm finding now. After having worked on the book again for a couple of weeks, it's much more natural for me to dive back into it, and so I can break it up and be a little bit more flexible with my schedule around it. So first thing, making time for writing. The second thing I'm doing is that I'm working on a writing project. So I have this novel manuscript that I've worked on for multiple drafts, and the next draft is my writing project, my big writing project for this year. So I've gotten feedback from some publishers that I pitched the manuscript to, and I also have thought about what I want this novel to be and what kind of writer I want to be and how I want to tweak and edit the story so that it becomes more the kind of book I want it to be. So that is my big writing project for this year. And to have a writing project, whether it's a blog or if it's some kind of journaling, or if it's a book, or if it's a short story, I really do think that it's helpful to have a project, because it gives us a structure to work within, and it gives us a format, and it gives us something to focus our writing around. Regardless of whether it's the thing that you want to do long term, or if it's just something to shape your writing within. Having a project can be really helpful to focus your writing efforts. So yeah, that's what I'm doing as well. I have my draft that I'm going to be working on. The third thing I'm doing this year is to try some new formats. So while I have my book draft and I have my blog that I've been running for many years, and I also write email letters to my email subscribers, those are formats I'm very familiar with because I've been doing them for many years. But this year I'm also trying to write some articles for magazines as well. So while it's similar to my own kind of blogging, it's also a new format, it's also a new way to write. So yeah, I've been doing that a little bit so far. I have 3 articles that I've been working on for different magazines, and it's something I want to try out more in the year to come. So yeah, freelance writing can also be a good way for me to incorporate writing into my business. I do a lot of content writing, but content in itself is not something that like gives money directly. So with freelance writing, that can be a way to have a little bit of an extra income in the business from writing itself. So that is something I am experimenting with and trying out this year as well. So to cultivate your life, writing for you can also look like trying out a new format in writing. Maybe you are very familiar with one type of writing that you've been doing, but to try something different can be like, it can help you to grow as a writer, and it can also open up your eyes to other types of writing that you may want to do. So for me, while maybe fiction writing is the part of writing that is mostly like, that feels mostly like my identity as a writer, to play around with different formats makes me grow as a writer, both in my fiction and in other types of writing. And it opens up my eyes to, okay, I can be a writer who does different things, and there are different things that writing can be a part of my life and my work as well. So if you haven't tried out a lot of different writing formats, it can be really helpful to experiment with a new one. And if you feel stuck in one part of your writing life, it can be helpful to try out a different format and see what things you learn from it as well. The next thing I'm doing is that I'm exploring who I am and who I want to be as a writer. So this is something that I think is always a little bit ongoing for us as creatives, artists and writers, that our style and voice is something that in the beginning is very unclear to us, and then it slowly crystallizes a little bit, but it is also always evolving and changing a little bit. And so to keep thinking about who you want to be, who you are as a writer, can be really important to keep growing and to keep getting clearer and clearer on what kind of writing you want to do. So with this novel manuscript, with the last draft, and thinking about how I want to take it going forward, how I want my next draft to be, I've also been thinking a lot about who I want to be as a writer, what kind of books I want to write. And as well with writing for magazines, I'm looking at the magazine's style, and I'm thinking about my own style in relation to that, and how I want to write for magazines, what kind of freelance writer I want to be going forward. So all of these things can help you think about who you want to be as a writer, and to keep developing your style and keep honing and shaping that voice of yours. And this is a process that is not very straightforward. It's something that is an interplay between practice to keep writing is in itself really helpful to keep figuring out who you want to be as a writer, but to also to read and to expose yourself to other types of writing and to see what kind of things resonate with you, and to introspect about what are the things in writing that really interest you, and what is your own writing that you enjoy the most, and to think about those kind of things so that you keep growing and evolving and developing as a writer as well. Hand in hand with that is to read and keep learning about writing. So reading is like bread and butter for writers. It's our source of inspiration, of seeing how other people use things like stories and sentences and structure. And the more we are exposed to reading things, the better we will get as writers. I firmly believe that. So reading for me is very important. It's something that I'm always trying to make as much of a priority as I can. And I have read quite a gang of like storycraft, writing craft books in the past, and I have 2 books in my bookshelf that I haven't gotten around to that I want to get around to this year as well. So I think it's so good and important to keep growing and learning as a writer, whether it's to simply read more of the kind of writing you want to do, but also other types of writing, to keep exposing yourself to different types of writing, or to take a class or pick up a book on a book craft. I think all of those kind of things are really great to grow as a writer and to take your own writing seriously as well. So yeah, I want to do that as well in this year to come. And finally, to cultivate a life of writing, I'm also taking note of thoughts and ideas and stories while I encounter them in my everyday life. So this is, if reading is one part of being a writer, then to explore and experience the world and our lives is another part. I think that all of us creatives, artists and writers, we take the world, we take our lives and our experiences and we turn them into our craft. And as writers, it's no different. So to take note of ideas, good sentences, words we're interested in, to take note of how things look and sound and smell, to take note of interactions between people, to take note of interesting stories we encounter, all of those kind of things, to capture them in journals or in notes app on your phone. All of those kind of things can be a really great source of input and inspiration into writing. So this kind of goes regardless of what kind of writer you are. So to capture things that can be used in fiction writing, but also if you are blogging, for example, to capture your own thoughts and feelings and emotions and ideas, to explore concepts. So yeah, all of these kind of things is a sort of pre-stage before sitting down to write. And I think that sometimes we get very focused on the actual fingers to keyboard writing out things. But to be a writer is not just about the actual sitting down to write. It's also about how we look to the world as a writer, and to look at our lives and our experiences and the things that are happening, and to think about, okay, what does this mean to me as a writer? How can I use this in my writing? Not that you have to use everything in your life, but to have that lens on the world that, that's an interesting scene, or that's an interesting way someone dresses that says something about them that I can use when I'm describing a character. I've done this in so many different ways in my life, in my writing. I've done it in my fiction. I do it a lot in my content writing for my blog. So one way to simply do this is to keep journaling, whether on your phone or in a notebook, and in to journal about things that you are going through or things you're seeing. Bring your note to a cafe and sit and just journal about the things that are going on around you. Write down the sounds you're hearing, the smells you're smelling, all of those kind of things, but because they can be used in whatever writing you want to write. So it's a source of input. Our world and our experiences and our lives can be a source of input, and should be, I would say, a source of input into our work as writers. So yes, I am excited to make writing a priority this year, and that I am making writing a priority this year in a different way that manifests in my life. And yeah, I hope that if you want to be a writer, and if you want to write, and if you want to cultivate a life of writing, that you do that, because nobody else can tell you that you are a writer, or nobody else can give you the permission to be a writer. Only you can do that, and only you can move forward and say that yes, I'm going to live life as a writer. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for coming with me on this journey of cultivating a life of writing. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give it a little like. If you're new, hello and welcome. You can subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!